Algebra students, welcome back. We are going to start section 2.7. This will be the very last section in chapter 2, and we have been working so hard on inequalities, and this is kind of the crowning moment. We're kind of pulling all together everything we've learned, and it's going to apply in this lesson with absolute value inequalities. Now, let's talk about the rules. That's what you see on the notes right in front of you. The same rules apply as to when we did just regular absolute value equations. Remember the first thing that we did. Please make sure the absolute value is alone. Make sure it's alone. If you have any numbers attached to the outside of the absolute value, they have to be physically removed from that side and placed on the other side, and then you can get the problem started. Okay? Now, step 2, we're going to assess the inequality symbol. If it's less than, or equal to, you're going to use the word and what that means is it's a conjunction. And we just learned about conjunctions in the last section. Okay? Conjunctions use the word and. We're looking for overlaps when we graph. And the way we know it's a conjunction with an inequality, it's whether it's less than, or equal to. Okay? Now, if it's greater than, or equal to, we're going to use the word or. And remember, or problems are disjunctions, and they don't have to overlap. They can overlap, but they don't need to overlap. These must overlap when you graph them. I'll put must because they must. Okay? Then step 3, we're going to create our 2 inequalities, and I will demonstrate this to you. The first one is exactly what you see without the absolute value signs. Okay? The second one, you're going to write it exactly like you did before, except you're going to flip the symbol, change the sign. Flip the symbol, change the sign. And then you're going to solve for each inequality and graph our results on one number line. Okay? So we've got our steps here. I'm going to take you through these steps and help you as we examine example 1. Okay, so letter A, let's take a look. We're going to take the absolute value of x plus 3, and that's less than 12. So the first thing I need to do is I need to look and see, is the absolute value, which is the absolute value of x, is that all by itself? The answer is, well, no, it's not. We have a plus 3 attached to it. So we must move the 3 over. So we're going to take away 3 from each side. And now we have the absolute value of x is less than 9. Okay, great job. We got to get the absolute value alone. Now, step 2. Let's look at the inequality symbol. Remember, with absolute value, if it's less than, or equal to, our connector word is and. If it's greater than, or equal to, we're going to use the connector word or. In example 1, all the ones that we're going to do in example 1 all have less thans. And that means they're all conjunctions. So we're going to use the connector word and. Okay? So that's the biggest thing, is that we know when we write our 2 inequalities, we're going to use the word and. So let's write that about there. I'm trying to give us a little bit of space so we can write our inequalities. All right, so step 1, get the absolute value alone. We did that. We subtracted 3 from each side. Step 2, assess the symbol. The symbol is less than. And with absolute value, that means it's a conjunction. We're going to use the connector word and. All right, step 3, we're ready to write our 2 inequality statements. The first one is you're going to write exactly what you see here. Just don't write the absolute value line. So we're going to write x is less than 9. Okay? Now the second one, we're going to write what we see. We're going to write the x again, but then we're going to flip the symbol, change the sign. Did you see how I flipped the symbol? It was less than, and I flipped it to greater than. And I took 9 and I changed it to -9. So that's what I mean when I say flip the symbol, change the sign. And now we're ready to graph and solve this thing. These should overlap. And if they don't overlap, The answer is no solution. Remember, conjunctions must overlap. Write that down one more time until we get it really solid in our minds. Conjunctions must, underline that like 3 times, overlap. There you go. Awesome. Let's put a couple exclamation points. Okay? All right, so you got a long number line. Let's just do it like this. Let's do -9, 0, +9. Okay? Now, the first one says x is less than 9. So we're going to do open circle over the 9, and here are all the numbers that are less than. Okay? Now we're going to do an open circle over -9. All the numbers that are bigger than -9. Do you see the overlap area? The top line is on top of the bottom line. There's a small little snippet here, starting here at -9 and ending at +9. And this is our answer. This is the part I'm looking for, is the overlap. Okay? I am looking for the overlap answer. You need to make sure that these things actually overlap. You could get a tricky problem where you know it's supposed to overlap and you think it does and you draw it that way, and in all actuality it does not. So you got to be careful. Make sure they overlap. Just double check it. Okay? All right, our code word for this section is pumpkin. So write that in the bottom right-hand corner of your notes, okay? Pumpkin. All right, now let's move on to example 2, or example 1b, the second one in this series. And step 1, we got to make sure the absolute value is alone. It is. The x plus 4, both of those are inside the absolute value lines, and there's nothing added to the outside of it, subtracted from it, multiplied to it, divided into it, okay? So we don't have to move anything. Step 2, we need to assess the symbol. The symbol is less than or equal to. Well, that means with absolute value inequalities, less than or equal to indicates that it's a conjunction. So our connector word is and. This is a conjunction for sure. All right, step 3, we want to write our 2 inequalities. First inequality is really simple. Write exactly what you see from the original problem. Just don't write the absolute value inequality lines. Okay? Then the second time we write it, we're still going to write the x plus 4, but then we're going to flip the symbol and then change the sign. Flip the symbol, change the sign. That's how you write that second statement. Okay? Now we get to solve for x. So let's take away 4. And I've got x is less than or equal to -2. And let's take away 4 again. And I've got x is greater than or equal to -6. Remember, conjunctions must overlap. If they don't overlap, you have a no solution, and that's what you write, is no solution as the answer. Okay, so we need to go from -2 to -6. So let's do -3, -4, -5, -6. Okay, so the first statement shows x is less than or equal to. So I'm going to do a filled in circle and then arrow to the left. And then I'm going to do filled in circle over that -6, arrow to the right. Hey, they overlap. That's great. That's what we're looking for, is that overlap area. So your final answer is that segment, which is the overlap piece. We're going to do filled in circle for both and a segment connecting the 2 filled in circles. This is the answer I'm looking for right there as the graph. And this is the solved answer. X is less than or equal to -2, and x is also greater than or equal to -6. Great job. Let's flip the page. Okay, letter C indicates that the absolute value is not alone. Remember, you got to get the absolute value. That's step 1. Get it by itself first. Do that part first, okay? Now, I didn't divide with a negative number, so I don't need to do any flipping Inequalities, remember that rule still applies. If I multiply or divide each side with a negative number, I must flip my symbol. I did not have to in this case because I didn't move a negative number. I divided each side by +2. Okay, now assess the symbol. It is less than or equal to. That means it's a conjunction, and my connector word is and. Step 3, let's write our two statements. First statement is always what you see, except just don't write the absolute value lines. So instead of writing the absolute value of x is less than or equal to 3, we're just going to write x is less than or equal to 3. You don't need the absolute value lines. And then our second statement, we're going to write x again, whatever's inside the absolute value, write that again. And then we're going to flip the symbol and change the sign of that second number. Awesome, that looks really good. Now we're ready to graph. So let's do -3 on up to +3. And let's just check, let's make sure they actually overlap. So let's do filled in circle over the 3, arrow to the left, and then filled in circle over the -3, arrow to the right. Hey, look at there, they do overlap, that's great. So we're going to write our final answer as the overlap piece. Here we go. And that's what I'm looking for. These are the two most important parts of this problem. I need to see the two inequalities that you're graphing and then the overlap piece proving that they actually overlap. Excellent. You guys are doing a great job. So I'm going to leave this last one, letter D, for you as extra credit. That's for you, and happy to leave that for you. Good luck with it. Remember your 4 steps. First step, get the absolute value alone. Second step, assess the inequality symbol. Is it a conjunction or a disjunction? Third step, create your 2 inequalities. Remembering in the second one, flip the symbol, change the sign. And then step 4, solve for x and graph. And good luck with that, and I will check this tomorrow with you.